want me to do the test? We're just testing before we start the meeting. We have a new system here, so we're just testing. Can everybody hear me on Zoom?
Sandra, this is Ann. I hear you well.
All right, thank you, Ann. No pictures of who's on Zoom today, huh? Okay, let's see, it is 4:30. It is Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. It's 4:30 p.m. I'm Sandra Larson, the chairperson of the Dubuque County Board of Health. I'm calling our regularly scheduled meeting to order at this time. We will begin with roll call. Amy Crow-Sunleaf. Here. Adam Hoffman. Here. Pat Lemkuhl. Here. Sandra Larson. Here. I believe that Mike Fidgen will be here shortly, and I think a couple of our members will be on Zoom shortly also, Ms. Smith and Dr. Schultz. So we do have a quorum. We'll go ahead at this time. At this time, anyone may address the board on matters of which are on the agenda. Please raise your hand on Zoom or stand up and state your name and home address if you're in the room. Individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. This is a time when you can speak about matters of which are on the agenda. And I will just say that the individuals who sent us a letter about the opioid settlement funds, we do have that on the agenda, and at that point, we'll ask you all to speak if you'd like to. Is that fine? Okay. And then, is there anyone else in the room or on Zoom who would like to speak about something that's on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will proceed. The next item are chairperson announcements and updates. I really have no announcements, but I wanted to say just a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Schultz for the article that he sent to the board members to review. It was an article concerning national trends in pediatric deaths from fentanyl, 1999 to 2021. And hopefully when Dr. Schultz comes, maybe he can speak a little bit more on that, but I do appreciate the article. The second thing I'd like to say is that one of our board members, Mike Fidgen, had a very well-written letter to the editor or other view in the Telegraph Herald this week. So I just wanted to call that to everyone's attention. And thank you, Mike, for being involved. And then I also received an email from Patricia Lemkuhl, one of our members, and she may want to speak on it further, but I wanted to call everyone's attention to this. Dr. Lee Merritt is coming to speak at the Piasta Community Center on June 3rd. Her topic is the bio war against humanity and how we win. And I believe what Dr. Lee Merritt, MD, is doing is she's spreading apparently a lot of misinformation and conspiracy theories concerning the COVID pandemic and COVID vaccinations. So I can give you more details about when she will be speaking in our area, and if anyone would like to attend and express an opinion, then you can certainly do so. Those are all my announcements. The next thing on the agenda will be the Board of Supervisors, Board of Health Liaison comments. Hello, Mike.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have necessarily anything from the supervisors that's on point here. I just wanted to advise the Board of Health that the supervisors have been individually briefed about the Iowa Expo, I believe is the name of the. So yes, the Iowa Sports Expo group, the situation that you'll be discussing tonight. So we've been briefed, but we have not had any opportunity for discussion. So I think that at this point, the ball is in your court, so to speak. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda for today's date. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda for April 19th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I mean for May 17th. I'm looking ahead to the minutes. I'm sorry.
I was just checking to see if. Because it could be the 19th for all I know. All right, so there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion concerning the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Aye. The agenda is approved. Next, approval of the minutes from April 19th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Anyone second that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from April 19th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Thank you. Presentation and reports. This is the time that we will hear from the Dubuque County Public Health Department for a monthly update, and our Executive Director, Ally White, will give us that. Thank you, Ally.
I will. Well, I was going to share my screen, but does everyone have a copy of the packet that they can reference? And also having Zoom, maybe that's why we do two computers.
Did you have your screen pulled up that you would want to share?
Yes. So this one should be up. There we go. Sometimes I make things more complicated than they need to be, I guess. Okay. Here's the monthly update. So this, before I start, please let me point out, I made a typo on probably the most important part, to not make a typo. The strategic planning session, it says Friday, May 23rd, 2023. That should be Friday, May 26th of 2023. My apologies for any confusion with that. I used the same format that I did last time. Hopefully you found it helpful. We have several completed tasks here in the health department. One of the things was a brief segment with KDTH on the Voice of the Tri-States, discussing the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, or NHANES.
What day was that? I'm sorry.
And so I spoke with her last week. She said she'd let me know it was going to be aired. She
Okay.
thought maybe last Friday, but I didn't hear anything.
Okay. If you find out, let us know, because we can, it's on the internet and we can go back and listen, so.
Great. I did attend the NICC Nursing Advisory Board meeting that was held on March 20th. April 24th through 27th was spent in Atlanta, Georgia. There was a lot to learn. It was a summit on emergency preparedness, which is something that's fairly new to me in this role. So there was a lot to learn there. We did hold some town hall sessions, both in Epworth and Key West. Since our last meeting, we'd like to continue that on Fridays. We're working on getting a schedule out so that communities can know well in advance where we'll be and when. It's been, to date, it's been kind of last minute, but that's something that we're looking to kind of schedule more in advance. The Dubuque County Wellness Coalition has met regularly through the pandemic, but we had transitioned to completely virtual meetings. We were excited to transition to hybrid. So we were excited to kind of welcome some of those team members actually into this room. So the Food Policy Council, I know that they met on May 8th. I was not able to attend that meeting. However, I believe Amy was able to attend on the behalf of the health department. They're now meeting bi-monthly and will meet again on August 7th. Quarterly. I mean, quarterly. Okay, thank you for that. That would make sense, August 7th. The one thing that came out of that was that it may be helpful in the quarterly newsletter through the health department if we were to list or feature a list of the food pantries that are available throughout the county, as well as their hours of operation. So that's something we'll be working on. The next quarterly newsletter will be in June. So, and then all of our health department staff, all three of us, have completed the water analysis testing to be able to perform the bacteria tests
Oh,
for water in our
congratulations.
office.
Good work.
Thank you. Concurrent and ongoing projects, we have our kickoff day, May 26th, not May 23rd. We're really looking forward to that. That'll be a great opportunity to kind of, some of the things that we've kind of been pausing on to be able to move forward with. So looking forward to that. I referenced the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. So their staff and their mobile unit will be on site beginning next week through July 3rd. So they will be in our community at the Unity Point Clinic on Pennsylvania Avenue. They are hosting kind of like, they're calling it a dry run or media day on Monday from 9 until 11. So they're just kind of looking to get the word out there. So I plan to be there for part or all of that.
And are you asking if we would attend to?
I would certainly welcome anyone who would like to attend. Please don't feel obligated. I know everyone is busy, but if that's something that you have an interest in, by all means, yes. We are continue to work on the community health assessment and the community health improvement plan. Our first step was to gather information via survey. That survey has closed, but we're still continuing to gather data. It's more subjective as we go to the town halls. If we hear of certain things in communities that they could use assistance with, we're making note of that so that that can be included in the improvement plan. And as I mentioned, we'd like to continue to hold the town hall discussions. Future plans, there is a possibility that we will host an intern this summer from the University of Iowa. It's an undergrad public health nursing or public health student. Next week, Bailey and myself will travel to Manchester for a day to partake in the sanitarian workshop. So it'll be a great opportunity for she and I to connect with other sanitarians in the area and just network. Really looking forward to that. There is a strategic planning summit in Des Moines on May 24th and 25th. It'll be hosted by the Iowa State Association of Counties, and it will discuss uses of the opioid settlement funds. So I had planned to attend at least one day. I'm going to see if I can try to attend both days. I think a couple of us from the county were going to try to divide and conquer, but that may not be happening. We've talked a little bit about this before. One thing that I notice is we do get a lot of foot traffic for water testing or septic permits, well permits, that sort of thing. Our department still only is able to accept cash or card, or I'm sorry, cash or check. We do have iPads in our department that I think might be able to be used if we could have some point of sale that we could accept debit or credit cards. I think that would be a good step moving forward. And then finally, one quick thing to mention here is the My Ascension by Emma Benoit at the Clark Atrium. That is okay. So that will be June 16th at 6 p.m. Again, at the Clark Atrium, open to anyone who would like to attend. It is free. Emma is someone who has dealt with, I believe, suicide attempts in the past, and she is here to tell her story, answer questions, be of support to those who attend. And then finally, you'll see the picture at the bottom here. And this was the park cleanup day that one of our board members, Amy, was able to attend with the Jefferson Middle School students. They weren't able to attend the cleanup day that was scheduled community-wide. So if I understand correctly, they took it upon themselves and scheduled their own event for the day. So kind of positive.
Great report, Ally, and man, you are busy. Wow. If there's anything we as board members can do to assist you, please let us know.
You're always supportive. Thank you.
One question, I haven't heard much lately about the after action report. Is that still pending or has it?
That's still pending in its final stages.
Okay.
Yes, I
thank
would
you.
expect that by next month, I will have a report to share.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Ally? Very good report, Ally. Thank you. Next, we have Stacy Killian from the VNA, and she will give a monthly update of the services that her organization provides for us. And Stacy, I'm glad to see you back.
Oh, thank you. So we've had quite a bit going on. One of the things I'm really excited is last time I was here, I talked about how we had hired a new home care aide for our CareNet department, which was desperately needed. So we were able to increase some of our county visits in the last month up to 22% of our homemaking was out in the county, which I think is wonderful. And we've reduced our waiting list from 86 down to 61.
Yeah.
So some of them we've admitted in, some felt services elsewhere didn't need them, but we're at least getting through that list, which is so important. We also had some staff attend the Brain Health Expo in Dyersville on May 13th, which we found very beneficial. And our I Smile at School oral health program just completed their school year. And what they provided was they did 683 dental screenings, 680 fluoride varnish treatments, 1,206 sealants at 13 different elementary schools within our 8-county service area. So it totals more than $47,000 worth of oral health services done for free. So we love that we were able to get so far out there. We also screened 45 children at Head Start and 71 children at WIC and found that about 9% were running with a decay rate. So glad we were able to get some of those early screenings and get them connected into oral health offices. Our immunizations, as I reported a while back, we had a couple more offices, medical offices that became VFC providers, which is really good for our community.
Stacy, I'm gonna stop you for, tell everybody in the audience what VFC stands for, please.
Sure. VFC is our Vaccine for Children program. It's our immunization program that provides vaccines to children 0 to 18 years of age. In order to be eligible for VFC, you have to either be enrolled in Medicaid, uninsured, or underinsured, meaning that insurance isn't covering the vaccines. And so we are kind of the gap filling service here in the county where a lot of our medical providers may not be a VFC provider. So they may not service that targeted population, but we're starting to see more and more ever since COVID offices becoming VFC, which is really a benefit to our whole community. And we had 2 additional offices recently become VFC. So we spent a lot of time, our clinic numbers are going down, which is fine. That's the way it should be, that you can get these services in your medical office. And it's given us a lot of time to work directly with school nurses, helping them get back iris entry that's been sitting there that needs to get done. We've also provided a lot of leadership support to some of those offices as they are newly enrolled in VFC. So a lot of good work is being done there and making sure that all of those vaccines are put into the state system and things like that. Our maternal health advisory council is going very well. We've met twice now and we have 32 community members on that active committee. So we're really happy to see such a great amount. WIC, as you know, we expanded our WIC service area in October, and in April we saw our highest participation rate. We had 2,808 participants come through for the month, and that's 98% of our participation rate goal. So really good to see that finally start to increase. We also are doing a budget change shift within our public health services grant. We have $42,000 that we're just moving buckets of money from our non-population health to our population health bucket. And the reason for that is kind of as we estimated at the beginning of the year, we did not get a lot of homemaking and home care aid staff. We've been short staffed for a long time. And so we shifted the money so we can use it in other buckets. Also, our Marshallese community connector, her name is Nikki. Both her and 2, I believe it was 2 staff from Crescent were able to receive funding to go to Arkansas and complete medical genetics specialty training for Marshallese medical interpretation at the University of Arkansas. This is really huge because that allows them to be certified medical interpreters. And so I know Nikki gets called on upon a lot when people are going to get preventative care or going to the ER or the hospitals or the clinics. And so having this available at our office and at Preston is a real big benefit as well. Our community health collaboration, if you remember, we were going to work with Mercy One Mobile Unit and maybe some of other community partners to try and find ways to collaborate more for health events out in the community. Our group is kind of expanded. We meet with Mercy One Mobile Unit, the Health Department, VNA, Crescent, Hillcrest, City, yeah. So quite a few people. Amy's also on that committee as well. And we're actually moving forward at all partnering together for the Back to School Bash in August. It's an event a lot of us participate in already. And so we're kind of at the point now where we're looking at who will be providing what services, but the services we're hoping to provide are lead testing, brain health screenings, dental screenings, blood pressure and diabetes screening, physicals and immunizations. And so we'll all kind of bring a specialty to that event, and then it'll be offered to any of the families coming through. So we're really excited for that collaboration. And we're also looking at just different other health events that are going on along the summer that we can partner with. A big one coming up is Pride. On June 5th, VNA will be offering Mpox and COVID vaccines, as well as information there. And I believe every single organization on this health collaborative are doing something at that event as well, including HIV and STI testing. I believe some brain health screenings and crisis intervention there as well. So we're really excited to be with that group. It's turning into a wonderful opportunities going forward. We also, VNA started a breastfeeding support group in April. One of our lactation consultant nurses, she runs the breastfeeding support groups through Uni Point as well, and then is bringing them to the VNA. We began in April on the first and third Thursday of every month for an hour, and it's really, we're starting to get more and more attendance, and we're getting a lot of referrals through our maternal health and WIC program, so we're excited to offer that as well. Lastly, we've submitted most of our grants. The local public health services grant was submitted April 21st. The immunization grant was submitted April 20th. Our breast and cervical cancer care for yourself grant was submitted May 12th, and tobacco prevention and control was submitted April 12th. So kudos to Allie, because she had a part in all of this, and it was all very new to her. So she learned as we worked together, but we were able to get everything submitted on time, and I think some really wonderful grants. So
Thank you very much, Stacy. I don't have any questions. Does anyone else have any questions for Stacy? All right, thank you very much for that very good report. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is an action item. It's Iowa Sports Expo Group. We need to discuss the septic status and possible action. And do you want to start with that, Ellie, or?
I am happy to do so. Are you good with that? So I'll introduce,
Dr. Bob, nice to meet you.
yes, with the Iowa Sports Expo Group. So we've been working together here over the last few weeks.
Bob Duggar?
Decker's my first name.
Oh, Decker.
Yep, Bob, D-E-K-K-E-R.
Okay,
Yeah, we spell it funny, and then P-F-A-B.
okay, all right, thank you.
And I'm the president.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you for joining us
Thank you.
tonight. Yes. And so I think first what I'll do is just provide a little bit of background information, kind of how the county was brought on board with this, and then how we got to where we're at today. So in early April, our department became aware of new ownership of what was previously known as the Dubuque driving range on what I call Highway 52, but I believe is really Highway 3.
Route 3.
Route 3, okay.
And actually, it's
I-
Rooster Lane now, but
And Rooster Lane,
3
correct,
addresses.
correct. So change of ownership and change of business plan that accompanies that change of ownership. And so over the course of the last few weeks, we have talked about, there were some zoning things that you were working through that have been good to go, such as parking and traffic flow and that sort of thing. As we learned about what the anticipated business plan for this property was, there were also some health-related things that we had worked together on. One of which was the private well, which will now be served as a public water system. Not a change to the system, it's just a change to the reporting requirements. So when it becomes a public water supply, they require quarterly water tests, basically, but the same system providing the same services. They also have a bar and grill, which has been inspected and passed by the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals. Do you want to talk at all about, I know it was indicated that the ice will be delivered, it won't be made on.
Yeah, so
site.
kind of a brief description on the way the facility works. It's been open for decades, so they kind of, grooved into a perfect system. But as far as any water sewer usages, it's very minimal. So there's, men's and women's restrooms, the bathrooms, and then very limited dishes. And that's, I think, about all of the water and sewage uses. So all of the utensils, all of the glassware is all disposable. All of the ice is brought in. They have a separate, they get it delivered by Arctic Glacier. And this was explained to the DNR as well, but the water, the public contact with water is minimal. It's basically, if you go and wash your hands in the bathroom is the only point of contact with the water. And then as far as actual waste, again, it's only people using the restroom. It's only, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 items that get washed there. I mean, everything's, all the food's pre-made. You heat it up or you have a grill. So very minimal contact with all that stuff.
Thank you for sharing. I think that just gives some context, and
Sure.
yeah.
And overall, very small building to it. I don't remember, it's like 15 or 2,000 square feet.
Okay. So I feel like that we've made a lot of, I can't say you've made a lot of progress. You've done a good job with following up with, well, pretty much everything. The one thing that still is kind of withstanding is the septic system that we have. And so I think it's important to know that the area is in a flood plain or way. Is there a difference?
It is,
Yeah.
it is in a floodplain,
Okay.
and part of it is in a floodway.
Thank you.
And what's the difference between the two?
A floodway is the area that water during a flood would actively be moving. So sort of a creek in, you can watch the Mississippi, you can see where the water is flowing much faster. That's the floodway, essentially, if you think about it in the same way for area that's in a floodplain. Water would flow in that area. And that's on the east side of the property.
It's been a very, very fun project because with, you have floodplain, you have floodway, you have wetlands, you have suspected wetlands, you have county, you have the city nearby. So the amount of jurisdictions has been very unique with this property.
I would wholeheartly agree with you with that statement. So, and I also think it's worth mentioning that you are working with a local firm to do is it a topography?
Yep, yeah, so
study?
we're
Okay.
working with Beasley and Associates to do a topography survey. So basically with any modifications to the land, there's most likely going to be a dual permitting process with the Corps of Engineers and the DNR. So having the topography survey in place is kind of the baseline thing required for almost anything going forward.
So as we work through these, there are several things that kind of keep resurfacing. Do we have private systems or public systems? Well, septic, and so we're trying to all navigate this. So through the course of educating myself and trying to provide guidance here, I've spoken directly with the DNR, who has reviewed the time of transfer report, which is included in the packet. There are several concerns with the current system not being able to meet the needs of the expected traffic at the complex. So we need to have a discussion on how to proceed. I know that Iowa Sports Expo Group is looking to host soccer events as early as the
Next week.
22nd. Yeah, so next week. But I do think that the way that the current septic system is set up cannot be used as is.
Sure. I do have some updates if that's still okay to share. So I did speak with the DNR with Corey Frank, too many names, Corey Frank, and he kind of re-explained the time of transfer issue as well. So we've owned the property a little over a month. So I guess I was under the false impression that, you know, if there was a, you know, issue at the time of transfer, that I would have known prior to closing, and, you know, I would have gotten a notification from the inspector, and it didn't quite go down that way. So we're facing this now. In talking with the DNR, my biggest, just to be fully transparent, the largest issue I'm worried about is the water table. This is a very low property. It has a high water table. It especially has a high water table in the spring. So my issue is the DNR explained the process of, you know, redesigning a new septic system. It was a 3-month process through the DNR engineers, going through that. And I'm skeptical that even a new system would be able to alleviate some of these problems. Like, where I think no matter what, we're going to face a high water table. Part of the issue is the existing drain field is underneath the parking lot. They were to move it not in the parking lot over the other part, that's even lower, and it's even a higher water table. So really the most feasible solution, which we were offered by the county in a meeting we had you know, about a month ago, we find it to be the most logical solution just to talk with the city of Dubuque to hook up to city utilities. So Wally Wermont had made it, had said that there are utility, water and sewer somewhat nearby, somewhere off of Tanzanite. It would take some time to get those over to our property, and of course, the city has a requirement to sign a pre-annexation agreement in order to hook up these utilities. But, you know, in speaking with our neighboring property, who's also trying to do a project and is hitting multiple pitfalls, kind of related with the same stuff. I know they're having lots of issues with meeting some of the septic requirements and everything. And I know we've kind of spoke, you know, privately and stuff. And it seems like just for this area of land, it just cannot be served properly by a septic system. So I did reach out to Wally, left a message, and I did email. A lot of this is transferred over the last 24 hours. So basically said, you know, send me the paperwork, let's get this started. I know the city does have to go through an engineering deal to decide, you know, the cost to get it to us. But I think no matter what, those costs are going to be less than us putting in a new system. So our long-term solution is hooking up to utilities. So my hope for today is we do have a facility that's been open for decades. I'm looking to find some form of a common sense solution to get us by until we hook up to these utilities. And then without going into detail, I'm sure everybody's seen in the paper the different things going on with soccer in Dubuque, lots of drama. But I think I just want everybody to know that we are a nonprofit, and what it is we are doing. I think if everybody knew the entire story, it's very important to what we're doing. And if we didn't act quickly on finding property for 600 players, you know, total, so it's split in different times. So 600 players to relocate to, that it would be very detrimental to youth programming in Dubuque. So we find this project very important, and we're very eager to find a solution, some solution that keeps the restrooms open.
Is there an issue with the well as well? Is it too small, or what's?
So in talking, I just got the email today from John Warren, right? So I got the email today, so he sent me the documentation. I fill it out, and I am then considered a public well, and then they're subject to quarterly water testing. As far as capacity, he never mentioned anything about it. As far as, he even said, even the type of well, it's their concern is passing a water test. If they pass a water test, they don't have a problem. And with the liquor license with this property, every single year, water tests were performed. So we know pass water test, and we did our own private water test. And then now that I have this account number, or whatever you want to call it, from John Warren, we resubmitted another test using that account number, so they have record of a passing water test.
So what's the concern with not using water on the premises? Like you're bringing in ice, you only wash a few things. What, I don't understand what's the.
It's well water. I know, even I own a property in Colesburg, which has its own city utilities, and I know people in Colesburg don't even drink their own water. So I have a property there, and it's just, I don't know, they just never have done it. It does pass a water test, that much I know.
Okay.
And the test does test for nitrates, and bacteria, and whatever else.
What ideas do you have for short-term?
So the initial options I had given, which we can discuss, before the last 24 hours, we had already contacted Tri-State Porta Potty. We are well aware that we're bringing extra people into this facility. So we already have porta potties scheduled to be delivered on Friday. There's gonna be 2 by the building. There's gonna be 2 out around the soccer fields. So a total of 4 porta potties. And then being that, again, just full transparency with what I was informed is in events of high rain and flooding and stuff, that the former owners did have to occasionally pump the system an extra time, just, you know, to avoid any backup. So we were planning on doing just a total precautionary pump of the septic system next month. And of course we could do it earlier. So kind of what my suggestions were to, you know, we already are gonna have the porta potties in place. Internally, I know it's maybe not relevant to the county, but we are directing our soccer participants to, that the bathrooms are for the bar and grill. Is somebody gonna drag their kid in there every once in a while to use the bathroom? I'm sure. But we are going to be steering the traffic of restrooms for the soccer groups to the porta potties. And then again, just doing precautionary pumps of the septic system. And of course, if we're going in there and the things overflowing, then obviously we need to pump more often, or we need to find a different solution. But
So how many, I assume this is just weekends.
so, yeah,
How
so.
many people?
So AYSO is the primary user using this. And they are gonna operate Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays for 10 weeks. Kind of another thing too, so it's a neighborhood bar. It's been kind of humorous. It's the same 10 people seem to go in there every day. You know, it's the same time to get their pitcher of beer and leave after 10 minutes, kind of alarming, but especially during the winter, it's a very, I mean, you drive past the parking lot, there's not too many people in the lot. It's a small building, it's the same people. Really our increased traffic is seasonal. Of course, we're limited because of winter. We can't play soccer out there in the winter. So our extra usage, I do consider to be very seasonal, and that's why we have the extra porta potties, and we're gonna do precautionary pumps with the septic.
But like on the weekends, I assume you have tournaments. So.
No, actually, we don't. So AYSO doesn't operate on the
Oh,
weekends.
okay. Oh, okay. So it's
They might
just
have a
Monday,
Sunday
Tuesday,
night practice. Yeah.
So it's
Monday,
not
Tuesday,
like the
Thursday.
tournaments where there's hundreds of
No.
people.
So AYSO typically held a soccer fest tournament out at the end of June. That's been canceled for this year. Just due to field availability and again, you know, politics in the soccer world. But and that was another thing I wanted to bring up too. So a lot of people have witnessed the Saturday morning massacre of traffic at the current Dubuque soccer complex. And that group is not part of this facility. And what kind of happens, it's a group, the equivalent size of our group, and they cram all their kids into a 4-hour period. We have the same amount of kids and we spread them over 3 days, over 3 time slots. And all that information was provided to the county.
And you're gonna have 4 porta potties or 8?
We were gonna have 4, so 2 by the building and 2
Okay,
further.
and is that gonna be enough? What's the ratio that is recommended for porta potties and participants?
We don't really have that. What I can tell you is that the existing soccer complex, there was 1 porta potty at one end, and then there was the restrooms at the other end. So I mean, we felt that 4 was sufficient, but of course, you know, if it's suggested to have more, you know, we're open to whatever.
How many people do you anticipate having on an evening?
Sure. The maximum that we would expect on an evening, which it probably won't even be this high, the max that we can even handle on the soccer fields, if we have full capacity, 166 players.
And then are most of those children?
Yes,
And so they'd be accompanied by their parents?
Yes.
So you possibly have at least two more, so 166,
300 people.
300. Would it be impossible to keep the bathrooms closed?
In the bar.
Yeah.
My concern with closing the bathrooms is, first of all, I don't know when they can be reopened, because this is an open bar and grill right now. So, you know, if the city's gonna take a year to get us, or a year longer, you know, not having bathrooms for a year is kind of detrimental to our business. And then on top of it, I would be concerned about jeopardizing our food license and our liquor license.
Decker, thank you for being so
Yeah.
transparent
Yeah.
with everything, working through stuff.
Yeah.
Was Corey at all worried about current existing size of septic system? Because to me, it seems pretty small for, I mean, it's like
Yeah,
a 2 to
it-
3% house size.
Yeah, it's only a 1,000-gallon system, and of course, I don't know the reason that was the size it was put in, but I would imagine the original theory was just because of the square footage of the building, or even the number of bar stools. I mean, there's not that many seats in this place even. So he did offer some solutions, so the DNR had shared of that, you know, I've dealt with an unrelated property in a similar situation. I know, I'm familiar with the time of transfer waivers, where basically you're given certain allotted time to remedy an issue. He did say that in the event, you know, okay, like I'm saying today, our intention is to hook up the city utilities. I'll look to get the proper documents to the county. But, you know, one option would be if the concern is using the drain field at all, if the county feels it shouldn't be used at all, one remedy is to install a larger tank and have it pumped. I know it's not a permanent solution. It's not an ideal solution. It's going to cost us some money to have it pumped. But at least that would alleviate any concern of any health issue.
And so that would be a temporary tank and temporary pumping until you get hooked to the.
Correct. Yeah, it would not be a permanent solution. This would be, it would be a Band-Aid until the city gets utilities.
So even if you get hooked up to the city, you're still not gonna have bathrooms for your players.
The current plan, we didn't really find it necessary. I mean, it's something, you know, we can speak with the county on that if they find that to be necessary. We do have a capital campaign in place to make improvements, including drainage and fencing and lighting, that type of stuff. We felt that because it is seasonal, we felt the use of porta potties, or if the county felt better of us having some type of bathroom trailer parked out there or something, something that, you know, there is no piping going to it. We just pump it out as it fills up, or have it on a schedule. You know, we're open to any suggestions with that, but at this time, no, it was just gonna be porta potties.
I think 4 is not enough,
Okay.
quite frankly.
Sure.
I had kids play soccer,
Oh, sure.
and so I know that there was always a line to
Sure,
that.
and 4 is just a number I came up with, so again, if we have a better number, I wouldn't fight anything. I mean, we're here to, you know, make sure the kids play soccer next week, whatever I have to do.
And Decker, I
Yes.
know you've spoken with Corey Frank
Sure.
of the Iowa DNR, and I have as well. It's been made abundantly clear to me, and I hope it was to you as well, that the current system is not acceptable or safe
Sure.
to be used. That being said, I think that needs to be a priority and consideration that we're being told by the DNR that we don't use this system. I mean,
Sure.
I think a recommendation would be that we want to see you be able to host soccer. I don't know if porta potties are the solution, but I feel based on the information I have available to me that's come from the DNR that the restroom does need to remain closed until a system is in place that is supported by
Sure.
the DNR.
And I did speak to our septic person, so in speaking with him, we came up again with a couple solutions, and Corey Frank is one who recommended the temporary installation of a larger tank.
Sure.
So, which having the tank would allow the restrooms to be open, so what we can do, according to my septic person, as early as tomorrow morning, what he can do, the existing tank is small, but he can install a 2,500-gallon holding tank within the next 30 days. And as a temporary measure, if the concern is to immediately stop the use of that drain field, he can come to our existing system, pump it out, and he can cap off the drain field. And he said he's willing to provide pictures and everything, or whatever documentation the county requires. So literally as of 11 a.m. when the bar opens tomorrow morning, the drain field's not used. Thus no health concern.
How will that impact parking for your soccer families?
Which part?
The drain field, is that where they'll be parking?
So actually, no. So we have rented the neighboring property from us, which provides us enough parking spots to accommodate all the soccer. And then, of course, our existing lot, we actually just today started doing it. We're installing parking stops as per request of the zoning department. So we've actually expanded the amount of parking spots in our current parking lot. And then that, but no, it's under the lot, so technically capping off at this point doesn't affect any parking.
I see our environmental specialist is on with us today. Bailey Avenarius, do you have anything you'd like to add? I don't hear anything, so. Let's have a little discussion. Are we ready for discussion, board members?
So if the storage tank is, the bigger one is installed, then the bathrooms could be used according to the DNR person that you talked to?
So that information has been relayed to Decker.
Oh, okay.
You saying it today was the first that I had
Okay.
heard of that as a potential solution.
Okay.
But that's something we could certainly confirm.
Ally, what are we as the public health charged with trying to figure out here? I guess that's what, is this a go, no go decision, an approval process? What is it that we have a responsibility to?
Sure, that's a great question, and I can explain to the best of my understanding kind of where we're at with things. So my understanding is that a local board of health has jurisdiction over private systems, okay? The fact in and of itself that a time of transfer was completed represents that the current system is a private system. So based on that information, I would assert that you as a board of health have authority to determine whether the current system can or cannot be used. Now, I think the second layer to this is that we're being told by the DNR that a private system is not what we need on this property, that it needs to be public, which then becomes subject not to county code or chapter 69 that we follow, but to rather chapter 64, which then becomes the jurisdiction of the Iowa DNR. That's, to the best of my knowledge, that's how I understand it to be.
And what moves it from private to public is the connection to the utilities of the city.
I believe that what moves it from private to public is the expected traffic flow,
The use.
the
of it
usage,
Open to
correct,
the public.
correct.
And its private state, was it open to the public, or that they used it differently?
It was probably improper. It probably wasn't supposed to be a private, is kind of what I was informed on.
And I see, did you have anything to add?
I concur. I'm just not with Becky. Do you have a recommendation to the board in terms of how to proceed with it, or?
My recommendation would be that the current bathrooms not be used, given that we have information that says that the current system is not acceptable. Now, the information that just is new to me now as of this conversation, if the DNR has a fix, I think that I would recommend that the board entertain that. But again, I don't know, not that Decker is not a trustworthy person, but we've not heard that from the DNR.
Ally, this is Ann. You have a chat from Bailey, whose microphone is not working. She says, I do believe the system needs to be permitted by the Iowa DNR, which would make it public. If the system serves more than 16 people on a continual basis, it would be considered public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey and Supervisor McDonough.
So can a restaurant be open if if it doesn't have restrooms?
That I do not know the answer to. So what would need to happen in my eyes, if the restrooms are closed, that the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals would need to be notified. And then they make that determination based on the information that they have.
So there's two separate kind of entities. I know your entity owns the whole thing, but the bar and grill is one thing, and then the soccer complex is another thing. Are there any detriments to the children who will be playing soccer with the current system? Because, you know, you're not gonna be able to hook up to the city next week.
Right.
And it's gonna take a while to get this bigger septic in. So I'm looking to make sure the youth aren't impacted negatively
Sure.
health-wise.
I would say, unfortunately, my answer is a little more on the, again, for lack of better terms, political, just, you know, the image. I think, you know, this is a big change for families moving this facility. We have, we had some skeptical people, but we have some very enthusiastic people about doing this. And I think, again, you know, if tomorrow's headline is new facility no longer has bathrooms, well, that's, you know, we're essentially, you know, handing people away. So I guess, you know, my consideration, and again, if I'm totally wrong, just you know, tell me. I would hope the concern would be the concern of public health, and that, you know, the drainage is not considered safe. I would recommend from the county's perspective, you know, I can deal with the state part with them with what we do with this, but from the county's perspective, the stopping the usage of the drainage field, I think, eliminates your health concern.
And that's the parking lot
That is.
that your youth are not using.
My pumping out the existing system and capping off the drain field, just having a holding tank. And then within that 30-day period or sooner, whenever you can get out there, he can install the 2,500 gallon tank, which would allow us to pump out every few weeks, every month, until we can hook up to these utilities.
Mhm. Well, because what I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that your restaurant might have to be closed, but that's not gonna impact your soccer.
Financially, it will.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's
Yes.
the real issue.
Yeah, the bar restaurant is owned under the nonprofit. The profits of that is what subsidizes costs for the youth.
Okay, so if the bar and restaurant are closed, how does that impact AYSO starting May 22nd?
It's gonna, well, yeah, on the 22nd, unfortunately, it's Monday. We may not be able to offer them the fields at the $1 that we're offering them the fields for.
Okay. So AYSO is not a part, it's under the umbrella of the Iowa Sport Expo.
Yeah, so yeah, full transparency, I've been an executive member of AYSO for 10 years. I've been a volunteer for 21 years. So I was commissioner for 9 years. I'm now the area director covering the state of Iowa with AYSO. And AYSO is a nationwide organization, all under one single tax ID. So for AYSO to purchase property is a very long, difficult process, and we're based out of California and everything. So for us, we're acting on behalf of AYSO under the Iowa Sports Expo Group, a separate Iowa nonprofit.
Okay, so,
But no, the entire business model of us providing the subsidized soccer programming to the youth is currently contingent on the operation of the bar and grill.
okay, yep, and that's what I was wondering. Okay,
But you also talked about a capital campaign.
Yes,
Would that come through AYSO?
we are ourselves a 501c3 nonprofit, so we are the ones operating the capital campaign.
Would you be, where do the capital donations come from, the folks playing soccer?
No, from donors in Dubuque, we've been talking with people on that.
well, I feel like we can't really make a decision until we hear from Corey. I think the DNR is driving this now. And so if we have to convene a special meeting, we
Right.
can do that.
Couple things. First of all, we did, both Ally contacted the county attorney for some advice. And he did respond that what he would like from us, the Board of Health, is specific questions concerning our legal issues. So I think we do have some questions possibly. So we could contact the attorney to, not make a decision tonight and contact the county attorney with specific legal questions. And also contact Corey Frank and verify. Because just like you're saying, Amy, it seems reasonable that the larger tank and the capping first, and then the larger tank soon would kind of give us a little time to operate. You could even have the restaurant open, I think, with.
$5,000 Band-Aid, and plus the pumping costs would be significant. So I
Right.
mean, we would incur some additional costs, but
What I don't know, just sitting here tonight, is who makes up those rules? Will it be Corey Frank or the DNR that says, this is what you have to do? Or is it us that make up the rules? So I'm not real clear on that. So,
if you don't mind me adding, I just wanted to add, I do believe that Corey Frank again would like to know, receive confirmation that we are hooking up to city utilities. So that's why I'm working with Wally to try to expedite the process as much as I can, or at least get something in writing, some type of commitment that we are going to do this. And once I provide that commitment to Corey Frank, that's where he says having a temporary holding tank would be sufficient.
okay, and then concerning the restaurant, wouldn't it be possible to get some sort of upgraded porta johns? They're not porta johns, I don't think. There's some sort of upgraded bathrooms that could suffice for a while for your
Yeah,
restaurant?
if that would suffice the health department and our liquor license, yes.
And we don't do the
Sure.
inspections for restaurants, so
Sure.
that would probably be up to the person that Ally referenced,
Sure.
but at least it might be a possibility. So, so I'm not sure what we should do. Do you have any idea, Adam?
No, I mean, the band idea is a good one in terms of like, you're just making a really big porta potty essentially. So that one makes sense from the public health standpoint. But I think until, Corey okays it.
Can't do
We have to
anything.
make sure
Yeah.
of that part of it, I
Alright.
think from the public health standpoint.
Okay, so then I think, wouldn't the proper thing be to table it until we can get the certain advice and then we can reconvene our special meetings if we have to, so we could do that. But I'm a little concerned about Monday because I don't think the restroom should be open. And you said that people don't drink the water? What if they don't have water?
Bottled water, we sell bottled water.
So you have no drinking fountains or anything. So the well, we don't have to worry about, I don't think, but the restrooms in the restaurant should not be open according to the DNR. So are you willing to,
Well, the DNR there said the restaurant shouldn't be open.
not the restaurant, the restroom,
Restrooms.
in the restaurant? Are you willing to voluntarily keep the restrooms closed until we get this worked out, or?
As I said, we're still open for business tomorrow. We don't have porta potties yet being delivered tomorrow. They're being delivered on Friday. The owner of Tri-State Porta Potties in Florida, he gets back tomorrow night. He's delivering them Friday morning.
Okay.
Now, what I will say is I don't know how soon you would have your special meeting. But if I'm, obviously I wouldn't necessarily be participating in that, I'd assume, but if you kind of gave me notice, I can make sure that if the extra temporary Band-Aid of capping off this, because he can come and cap that system off in about 30 minutes just using the tank until he can come in with the bigger tank. He can do that in a matter of very short notice. So if you were having a meeting on Monday, at which we may have a decision for Tuesday, effective Tuesday morning, I can't have bathrooms open, I can have them there Tuesday morning to cap that system, if that's a reasonable, 30-day fix until we have the larger tank.
So, I heard you answer saying that until Friday, you're not gonna have porta johns, so you wouldn't be willing to close the bathroom. But I'm wondering, once you get the porta johns, would you be willing to voluntarily close the bathrooms
Until you make a decision, just a temporary until there's a final decision, I'd be willing to consider that, yes.
and it might have to, continue until you get the larger tank in?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
So
Yeah.
Anne again, telling you what Bailey is saying. Bailey indicates if there's going to be a temporary holding tank, there will need to be an alarm installed to know when the tank needs to be pumped. We will also require the pumping records.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, do you think it's adequate to have it on record today that the bathroom will be voluntarily closed? and kept closed until we reach a resolution. Do you think that's adequate, board members,
Do we have to recommend something though or not?
right now?
I mean, do we recommend that the restaurant be closed until? Like, do we have to make a recommendation? I'm just thinking.
I think,
I don't know.
I think that would be our recommendation. I don't know if we have to make it because he's sitting here voluntarily saying he will do it, so, but we could for the record. Oh,
I think,
Ed, Raver,
let me dangerously weigh in.
please.
In working through this with your health director, who's been very aggressive at trying to get to solutions or to figure out how we can help this project move forward in some way, you're being presented with information from DNR that this system, the time of transfer did not pass. I'm not sure what other information you would need to figure out if it can continue to operate that as it is. So I'm not sure what decision you would be waiting on. There may be a series of decisions you may make, but we've been told by the DNR it did not pass. So I'm not sure what else you would need to know about, should it be allowed to be open? Should the client be allowed to say that they're going to voluntarily do that? Or is that something that you would do? I think the Board of Health is in a position to say what should happen if you have a time of transfer that does not pass. And that the system is supposed to be a different type of system. You're waiting for the client to show you a plan for what that would be. I think you've heard your sanitarian as well as, although it hasn't come to Ally, it appears that the DNR has provided some path. And I think that's a good thing. The DNR in our conversations have always been trying to figure out ways for the applicant, the client to actually do their project within these constraints. So they're not trying to shut some one down, but within the public health arena, you've been told something. I think that's where you need to lead from. If the client comes back in a timely manner, the best case scenario for them is as soon as he finds out something specific, the way we appreciate the flexibility and commitment of the Board of Health, as soon as that comes in, I think what Ally is saying that she would schedule, when she receives that from the applicant, she would schedule a special meeting with you so that you can evaluate that, perhaps have sidebar conversations with the DNR, and then try to approve that. But to a certain extent, some of those are on the applicant to do. Bring that here. As a volunteer, is your willingness to let them know that as soon as that happens, you'll meet, not in the middle of June, but you have a system that did not pass. So waiting, I'm not sure what else you would need to do. I think that's the recommendation from the notice from the DNR that it didn't pass.
Yeah, I think it might be prudent to make a motion to not allow the restaurant to be open until it's certified by the DNR that it's a public septic and that it's passed. Restroom. Sorry.
Let's say restaurant. It's like blood pressure.
I think that's.
I have one question. I deal with real estate in multiple counties. I deal in Jackson County, Clinton County, all this stuff. So I've dealt with time of transfers. I dealt with time of transfer waivers. And I know, at least with residential real estate, I know that if I'm buying a property that doesn't even have a drain field, but you're buying it in the middle of winter, they allow you the process to go through and will give you have to sign an agreement where within 6 months or within this time, I will have this drain field installed. I know Jackson County and Clinton County have those processes. I didn't know what Dubuque County's process is on this. I'm not asking the county to look the other way and let me keep, dumping, sewage into an unauthorized drain field. But I believe with some residential houses, these exceptions are made. So I feel offering a remedy of capping off that system is something that I would hope would be a possibility of something reasonable.
Thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, so I move that the restrooms at Offside Bar and Grill be closed until proof of capping and proof of a new public septic have been installed.
Or are we looking for the larger tank, temporary? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
The larger tank
Yes.
for temporary until he gets
Yes.
hooked to the city,
Yes.
right? So let's restate that then. So it's a motion, say your motion
So
again.
I move that the restrooms at Offside Bar and Grill be closed until we have proof that the current septic tank has been capped and a new larger holding tank. Is it a portable tank or?
No, it's a foot in the ground.
Okay, that a new larger tank has been installed with an alarm and has been inspected and will continue to be inspected
But
by
And
the
yeah, we
DNR.
should get DNR.
And that then it transfers to the DNR, I think, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, is there a second to that motion?
Yes.
Second.
Any further discussion? Is Bailey still trying to say something in chat, you think?
I think that was Dr. Schultz who said I second that.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Bailey
right.
has not entered any other comments.
okay, all right. All right, so there, any further discussion? So just so everybody understands, what we would be voting on here is that the soccer place could open. We have all suggested that you have more porta potties, I think. The bathroom that's connected to the restaurant has to be closed until basically approved by us and Corey Frank, probably the DNR has to be involved. But we are approving basically or accepting your temporary fix to cap the field, to put in a larger tank and to pump it frequently until you get hooked to the city sewer. So that would be kind of the board's view, okay?
that, and to clarify, that capping of that current tank technically cuts off the drain. So during that 20 to 30 days, I wait for that 2,500 gallon tank, and I authorize to reopen that bathroom. So that's what capping the tank does.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think.
I just
that
want to
can-
clarify, because
Yeah.
if we're capping the tank, there's no purpose to cap the tank. If,
Well, to stop the flow into that really bad field. I mean, you have a bad field, I think.
right, and that's fine, if the bathrooms aren't used, there's nothing going into the field, so there's no reason to cap it, I guess, as well. I was clarifying.
There wouldn't be a lot of use, but you'd
Sure.
still have some kitchen, is
Sure.
probably better.
Sure.
What do you think, Adam?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if per Corey, if it's capped off and nothing's leaving, that would,
If
Stop.
Corey, or if the DNR approves
yeah,
that.
if like capping off and gonna do stuff, like once it's capped off and then not gonna be released, as long as, pumped regularly and stuff like that, I think it could still be used as long as Corey has okayed that part of it
Okay.
too.
The ability to use a kitchen sink though would be helpful in this process, if
Yeah.
that's not considered dangerous.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think we all kind of know the track we want to go down, but the restrooms do have to stay closed until you heard from us and DNR that those restrooms can be reopened, okay?
And the inspector, if the restaurant can be open if the bathrooms are closed, that's, I guess.
That'll be up to that.
Right.
That's kind of-
But we need proof of all of that, I think.
Right. Okay, any further discussion on the motion that's on? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you for your patience. All right, the next issue on our agenda are responses to public questions. And we'll begin with, we all received, I believe, a letter from some community members regarding the use of opioid settlement funds. And some of those community members who wrote that letter, I believe, are here tonight. Evan Hudson, I recognize you. And Diane Hankin,
Okay.
and your name was?
Pastor Stephanie Ells.
Okay, and you're not one of the signatories on the letter, but welcome anyway. Yeah,
She's on the board.
I'm on the board of Dubuque Farm
Okay, all right, so tonight, we would like to respond to your letter. But before we do so, we'd be happy to have you speak. You'd each be allowed 3 minutes if you'd like to talk to us.
Sure,
Okay,
I can start if that's cool with you guys. Let's see, first off, thank you guys so much for being responsive, and Director White, you have a tough job, and I just want to thank you personally for how warm and responsive you were, and when I saw you at the opioid commission, and I feel like that's a really good start to a community dialogue on how these funds might potentially be used. Just to briefly outline what was in the email as a refresher, the first thing is that I'm under the impression that one potential avenue that this could go for the use of the funds would be to put them into a type of endowment or investment where they'd be invested, and then the interest or profits that accrue from that are then spent in perpetuity to, for example, fund a full-time position or some kind of smaller job. It's my opinion based on firsthand experience and lived experience as a recovering heroin addict, but also daily interacting with the people that are suffering from addiction and mental health issues really severely in Dubuque, is that this is a pressing issue. The worst possible thing that we could do is what we've already been doing, which is waiting, and which is not to say that people in the community, Mike Fidgen runs Hillcrest, you guys do so much good work, Crescent Community Health, all the Unity Point, Turning, so many people are working on this issue, but in a fragmented manner that is not addressing the systemic issues, the structural issues that cause so much suffering that I hate to say it, but people in rooms like this one are insulated from by, but if you see it on the street, people are going into psychosis, overdose as a daily fact of life, daily risk. And so I would recommend that the funds, I don't have any recommendations off the bat of besides Narcan access, and I'll talk about that in a second, of how we spend the money. I would like to get a group of stakeholders, decision makers in a room and have a community dialogue about how the funds could potentially be spent. And that letter was intended as a seed for that to grow from. And but briefly, some possible directions that we could go. Increase naloxone access through vending machines, I think, is the low-hanging fruit here, and we've seen this implemented around the country successfully. There's different models that we could go from very low-tech, simple, kind of little library type things that are potentially put in vestibules of businesses or so forth that agree to support us. That would be an investment of under $5,000 in perpetuity, and the people that put the Narcan there would fill them up, and my organization would volunteer to provide the Narcan, or through the state. Diane can tell you a lot more about how that would work. I think the other thing that I would really, and a pattern that will emerge is that I would advise that we seek consultation from other places, other jurisdictions, where programs like these have already been implemented successfully based on evidence that shows that outcomes improve. And there's an abundance of them both within the United States and also in other countries as well. But there's a vast body of peer-reviewed evidence showing that harm reduction-based solutions work. The other thing that I'd really like to see happen in the short to medium term is the implementation of increased peer support for, and this is something that in community health centers, addiction recovery focused facilities, and hospitals, emergency rooms has already been implemented around the country. It's kind of best practice at this point, and a big part of trauma-informed care, care navigators, social determinants of health. This is basically just when we say in harm reduction, we meet people where they're at. This is the manifestation of that, where instead of a choice between a restrictive inpatient psychiatric environment or the criminal justice system, this provides a middle third way of trained professionals who also in many cases have lived experience, who can help these people start to address the deep-seated issues in their life. So on that note, Dubuque Harm Reduction is working with Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition and the Iowa Department of Public Health, Health and Human Services, Hipwood's group, and we're working on a statewide peer support concept that again would seek consultation from other jurisdictions where this has already been implemented successfully. Stephanie, our board member and pastor, she has graciously offered us her annex of the First Presbyterian Church downtown as a place to convene one of these community gatherings. And I'd be open to talk about, answer any questions you might have. That was more than 3 minutes for sure, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate you coming tonight. Those vending machines,
Yeah.
are they legal in Iowa?
Sure, well, Narcan was just made over the counter. So this was a huge step forward in removing red tape. Diane's the person to ask, she knows more than I know.
Okay, and are you personally aware of any place where the vending machines have been put in Iowa?
Good question. Oh, yeah, Cedar Rapids.
Do they have them?
Cedar Rapids Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition had, they didn't have Narcan in theirs. It has to be climate controlled, which is why it's good to have it at least inside a vestibule of a building. It still retains its use. If it gets really hot or cold, it just degrades slightly. But it would be preferable to have it, for example, inside the vestibule of a church or a post office, a library, clinic, something like that. But yeah, Iowa Harm Reduction. And then also I want to shout out to Hillcrest or A New Day. You guys also have a sort of Dropbox type of thing, not for Narcan, but there are climate controlled solutions. They're just more high tech and expensive.
Now that you've just said that it's going to be available over the counter, because I think that's a big push, a big issue, that you want that available to the community.
Right.
Is it not available now? I mean, what's the issue or what's the problem?
So I talked a little bit about it when we came in February, and I think at the time, I'm Diane Hyken. Do you need my address?
Your street name.
Radford Road in Dubuque.
Okay.
So at the time, we were waiting to hear if it was going to be approved to go over the counter, and that happened on March 29th. The difference between the prescription and the over-the-counter Narcan is not the product, it's the packaging. So they have to manufacture the packaging. So the packaging has to take the place of the pharmacist, right? Because they're not available. So any packages that are out there that are labeled RX only and don't have that descriptive, it's called a drug fact label. And in this case, the Food and Drug Administration went ahead and created one so that it would be easy for companies to apply to get approved, because that's usually the biggest hurdle, is having an appropriate drug fact label that takes the place of all the information you get from the pharmacist. Because packages don't normally have all of that. You know, you get it verbally, you get the extra paperwork. So that has the company that makes branding Narcan, Emergent Biosolutions, agreed to use that drug fact label. That expedited their approval because they applied, I think, in December. Now they are predicting that it might be June, July before it's actually out over the counter. I'm starting to see ads. I haven't heard of a specific date. So that was one thing we talked about in February. That was one thing we were hopeful about, and that's happening. Not sure when it will be out over the counter. Cost is not sure, you know, it's not readily available yet. We think it might be too much for people to pay for if it's $40 or $50. And that's what one group has suggested it might be. So the other thing we talked about in February was the House file and the Senate file that had been proposed by our governor in her condition of the state address. She said, I want to increase naloxone access. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, how are you going to do that? She said, right now you have to get it from a licensed pharmacist. Right now it's a prescription. This was in January, still is, until it comes out with new packaging. So they had companion bills that were brought out from the governor's office, went through the House and the Senate at the same time. House File 595 was signed yesterday. And I don't know, were you there, Ally, when Timmy Brown Powers came from?
I was there.
Or you were there, okay. So, and I asked her the question, I was really excited about the language in the House bill that had passed through. They passed it first before it came out of the Senate. They added some interesting language that talked about places providing harm reduction services. But basically, she listed all kinds of entities that will be considered, it would be legal to be secondary distributors. Okay, so you would get it from a pharmacy, and because a health department is one of them, a county health department. It was a school district, a social services provider. Well, here we go, healthcare. Well, I'll give you the bill number. It's House File 595. And the first division is very much related to penalties, drug penalties. It's a big bill, it's an omnibus bill. The second division is the one that talks about increased Narcan and naloxone access. So basically though, I don't know if any of you remember that, but I said, you know, you might want to start looking at this bill because you might be considered available to be secondary distributors. And at the time, we had no clue if it would be approved over the counter. Timmy Brown Powers said, don't get excited about that bill yet because it's an omnibus bill. We put an amendment on it And when it goes to the Senate, it probably won't go through because they don't usually approve omnibus bills with an amendment. They did. And it sat for a little bit, but yesterday Governor Reynolds signed it. So I don't know what that means. I have been told to, by her office when I wanted to understand how that would work legally. Because there's never been an avenue for a prescription drug to be dispensed anonymously in the state, is how the Board of Pharmacy would consider it. You know, it has to have a patient name, or at least they allowed some organization names to be on it for Narcan. But for something like the health department to get it or school district to get it and then hand it out to other people, that's not been done. I mean, and this is something that even has to be put in the PNP.
So there's some things that still need to be worked out, but there's progress being made, I think.
Yeah, and that is really kind of, in my opinion, the cornerstone of the harm reduction is the naloxone, the increased naloxone access, because you can't provide any of those other services to people that are not alive.
Right. Diane, the 3 minutes is up.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And we'd like to hear from you if you have something that you'd like to add.
So I'm Pastor Stephanie Els, Bald Eagle Court here in Dubuque. And I guess I get really excited when Evan is talking about the collaboration and just getting everybody in a room, the community partners. You know, I think there's a lot of, so I have a background in juvenile justice stuff, child protective services, stuff like that. So I've come at it from that end too. But you know, there's so many hurdles in our system that's trying to do a really good thing, right? Like, but often it's like a bunch of little prop planes buzzing around the runway and no one's taking off but it's all good energy, but like no one can get off the ground because there's no one directing the traffic. And so I think it would be really good if the groups could all just get together and share with one another and realize their common goals, and then really talk about how do we want to reach these. And we've seen a model of that in with a lot of our groups in Dubuque who are working on food insecurity, that they've really started, you know, getting in one room, working together and talking about who's doing what and how are we doing it, and are we repeating ourselves, and are we, you know, and so I just think when we're talking about the issue of, yes, opioid use, but just drug use in general in our community and how we're seeing an increase there, is that I would just like to see us being more of a team together and looking at how we can offer, again, that the low barrier services in a more streamlined, effective way. I think that's something that I feel really passionate about as a pastor, is that every person has value no matter what they're putting in their body. And I think a lot of our services are dependent on them making a choice about what they're putting on in their body. And so what we're end up telling people accidentally is you're not valued because of what you're choosing to put in your body. And I don't think the Dubuque community is a community that wants to say that to people. You know, from what I've gotten to know about Dubuque, is it's a place where we really want everybody to feel like they're valued in our community. And when we say you have to do this and this and this and this to get access to services, then the message we're accidentally or we're intuitively sending them is, you know, actually you're not important until, you know. And so that's heartbreaking for me as a pastor in downtown Dubuque. You know, I'm at 17th in Iowa, so regularly I'm encountering folks who are having all kinds of struggles. So that's the perspective I come from, is just a little bit different, a little less clinical,
All right.
a little more about the whole person.
Well, thank you, Pastor. Your time is also passed now, so thank you. I appreciate it. So board members, we got this letter, and our interested community members have come here to speak with us. And so I thought we could have just a little discussion. I wanted to start out by saying to all of you, I hope you understand that the Board of Health and the Department of Health, we're not holding the opioid settlement funds.
Yeah.
We don't have them. We don't have control of them at this point. I don't know if we ever will, but at least from a personal standpoint, I definitely want to be an advocate for you and your group. And I do think, I call it low hanging fruit, getting that naloxone out to people is priority number one, making it available and accessible. So personally, that's how I feel. And we can talk about it here. And I think Kevin Dugato is on Zoom with us. I think he's kind of running the program, or at least holding the meeting. So Kevin, if you'd like to say something about the opioid settlement funds, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, good afternoon. I am the Dubuque County Auditor, and for this program, I am the administrator. So I'm not necessarily deciding, in fact, I'm not deciding how these funds are spent. I am here to facilitate the movement of the funds, the reporting of the funds, and to discuss allowable uses, what's not allowed, and to offer, any insight that our office can do. For full disclosure, the idea of entering into some sort of endowment was proposed by myself to a small group, including Allie White, Sheriff Joe Kennedy, and May Hinchin, who was also in the room. And part of the reason for that was largely due to the amount of funds that we will have at any given point versus what we will receive over the course of the settlements, which range from 8 years to 18 years. And the idea of the low-hanging fruit is a term I use all the time, and being able to sort of knock out some of that low-hanging fruit and do it sustainably, because my concern is always going to be great, we've invested in X, Y, and Z with the funds that we have. Now, how do we continue to invest in X, Y, and Z, and where do those funds come from? So that's sort of my point of view, and I just wanted the room to know that I was the person who introduced the endowment portion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Kevin, will that small initial group be meeting again soon?
Yes, there is a statewide meeting coming up in a couple weeks. I had really wished they would have a Zoom option for it so more people would be able to attend. I know that Allie and I both planned to attend. I have since had some schedule changes, and I will be unable to attend. That being said, I believe that this gathering in Des Moines is going to be more related towards applicable uses and less towards sort of administering the program. I believe our intent is to meet again in June to sort of take some of the feedback that we've received and look at the funds. We will, by the end of summer, we'll be sitting on about $570,000 and sort of figuring out what that actually can pay for. And then how do we sustain it from there? And having those conversations. I don't think that the idea of having larger symposiums is off the table. I think getting community input is important. And I think everybody in the room that day agreed that there needs to be community input. I think the goal of our group, speaking for myself at least, was to make sure that we're investing these funds responsibly and sustainably.
And Kevin, would there be is it a possibility if a proposal came to that small group? We would like to have, I don't know, $100,000 to immediately buy some naloxone and distribute it somehow. I mean, is that kind of thing possible on a sort of a more imminent or immediate basis instead of waiting?
I mean, absolutely. And ultimately, to be clear, the Board of Supervisors are the decision makers on the expenditures of these funds. Now, where the conversation about naloxone comes in, I think Sheriff Kennedy, who's not on the call today, needs to be a huge part of that conversation, because he had some input at that meeting that we were at regarding naloxone and his ability to get it, his ability to fund it. So if that's a need that the county has, at any point, these needs can be brought to the Board of Supervisors for their decision to be made.
Okay.
So if I might, as the supervisor that is your liaison and has been interested in from the outside watching this small committee begin, I am personally waiting for the health department, Allie, the sheriff, May, the stakeholders to be in a room and develop some kind of plan or philosophy, right? So I'm not in the conversation because I've been told it would be best if it was much more organic. So Sandra, I will be looking to the Board of Health to be making some recommendations. Our Board of Health is exceptional in terms of professionalism, professional experience, expertise. So, getting that organized and bringing it to the Board of Supervisors, this might be the topic you talk about in your strategic planning in 2 weeks. So it's all possible, but we do need to, of course, work quickly, but also not to be scattered, to have direction that comes from thoughtful input and a plan being created.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Yes,
So I was part of that meeting too, but I was on Zoom, so I wasn't in the room, but I'm not a money person, so of course I was all like, yeah, let's just spend it. But Kevin is a money person, so his endowment thing isn't to just squirrel it away, but it's to say, hey, let's not just spend it all and then it's not, we can't sustain it. So that was a great idea that I hadn't considered, that yes, sustainability is a good thing because we can't just spend it and then what? Because then it's like a cliff,
Well,
So, but the other thing is that this has been talked about. Ally has weekly meetings and we've talked about it, I think, every Friday meeting for the past month. And part of the waiting too is for this 2-day conference to find out what other counties are doing so that we don't have to invent anything, that we can maybe take what's already been done and go from there. So there is stuff going on behind the scenes. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's kind of like that iceberg that you only see this much, but there's a whole bunch under here that is going on. And I know that talk is cheap and you want to see some action. And I'm sorry that we can't do that action yet, but it is coming and it is on the forefront of what we're talking about. And it's going to be part of the strategic plan. We talked about that as well. So you just got to trust us, I guess.
May I respond? Thank you so much for thinking about the fiscal health of our community. I think that's really important, especially when we talk about sustainability and looking at long-term planning for programs that can enrich our community instead of just coming and going. We're talking about structural realignment of our approach to public health in Dubuque. To that end, I would like to point out that I've been running Dubuque harm reduction for 5 years with a budget of $0. We've saved multiple hundreds of lives of people who have no access to services because they've been shut out of this system. And what I'm hearing from almost everybody that spoke is passing the buck, saying, oh, well, it's not our responsibility exactly, or, well, actually, we're going to go to this community or this committee conference. They'll tell us what to do. Well, it's not our jurisdiction. And I would like to point out that this is a characteristic of learned helplessness, that if you guys don't have the power to make decisions and recommendations, then who does? And meanwhile, people are dying.
Well, I'm gonna stop you for a minute, that it's not learned helplessness, that we're working on it. But I understand where you might not trust that we're doing it because you haven't seen anything yet.
That's right. We have not been invited to these conversations. It's great that you guys have convened a group. Why have no community stakeholders been invited? Why is this a 7-member group that has nobody involved directly with community service provision? Well, I would expect that in the future, some of the signatories of this email, including people from ASAC or other service providers like Turning Point, Crescent Community Health, myself, or Diane, members of the faith-based community. Next time that group meets, I expect, according to Ann McDonough's recommendation, that community stakeholders will be involved in the conversation.
And that was part of our conversation as well, that to invite community stakeholders, and names were bandied about at that first meeting. So it is being discussed.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for being emotional. I have a client right now who just suffered an overdose and is in psychosis and is dealing with that. And this is just a daily life in Dubuque, and not just in Dubuque, all around our country. And I think sustainability is something that needs to be looked at. It should be balanced against the urgency of these twin crises. How many people died of COVID in Dubuque total? 20 to 30. I would say that in this same time period, there has maybe been considered, at least, I don't know the exact numbers, but we have people dying of overdose in Dubuque. We mustered a complete community response with every stakeholder coming together and figuring out what we're going to do and treated it as a crisis. The overdose crisis, because these people are treated as worthless, criminals, has been fragmented if existent at all. And often the barriers to accessing this treatment, these services are so high that people don't. Naloxone's been available. You have to go to a pharmacy. In order to get it, you have to put your name in a database. And so no one gets the naloxone. We have to remove these barriers to access, or it's a dereliction of duty. Again, I apologize for being emotional.
Well,
This is-
and I appreciate
Evan,
that.
just
I
a minute,
do.
please. Evan, your 3 minutes is up.
Yeah.
Your second 3 minutes. So I really appreciate all your input. And I hope that you're hearing that the community stakeholders will be involved. They're trying to me, and I'm not part of the meetings, but they're trying to sort of set a baseline and then work from there. I personally, if there's any way that there can be a proposal for some money and a plan, some money that we could get out to buy naloxone right away, I'm in favor of that. I would take it to the supervisors if the board approves it. But I don't have a plan, and I don't have a procedure, and I can't go asking for money until all of that's in place. I hope you understand. We can't ask for money without having that all in place.
Can I give you the name of the person at the governor's office that I've been told is the contact for this specific bill that would make you available to be a secondary distributor? Her
Yes,
name
please
is
do.
Laura Book, B-O-O-K. I reached out to her. I didn't get an answer. I'm not really at any kind of level to get an answer from her. I believe she's an attorney. I'm not sure, but she's an analyst, for
Okay.
legislative analyst, Laura Book.
Okay, and Mike,
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment and piggyback on something that Supervisor McDonough said, which I think she's spot on about her role, the Board of Supervisors, and what we as a Board of Health, as well as you all as a grassroots effort to bring information to, you use the term in your letter, which I thought was good. A successful response requires a coalition of stakeholders, right? So if we consider ourselves, as the pastor's saying, all in this together, right? And so we've got to figure out, what is a coalition, the stakeholders, what does it look like? How do we have that representation? And that takes time. I'm new to Dubuque. I'll be here 3 years in July. And I've had, several conversations with Supervisor McDonough around just, trying to understand how things work, how some things don't work, just based on, some objectivity that I had while I came here. And she's been a very good guide in that process. So the one thing I know is there are a lot of resources in Dubuque. And so creating that collaboration, that coalition, I think is going to be critical. My understanding is that the dollars, there are, the way they're brought into the system here locally is with an outside authority and control. And then once they come in, there are certain pathways. I wasn't at the first meeting, but our organization was invited and we sent somebody to it. So I got a debrief around that information, enough probably just to, have more questions than they came back to me with information. But at the last comment, at the event at Clark, which you all spoke at, which Amy was there, I was there, right? I spoke on the interest of something that was going on for Hillcrest, but certainly aligned with what we're talking about as it relates to, substance abuse and substance use issues that impact the community. It was Representative Eisthart who at the end said something, it wasn't necessarily directed to me, but I took it that way as a member of this board, which was, your title and your role on public health gives you the power to convene. And this is a public health issue. And, public health should be involved in convening. So I think Ann has set it out, right? And public health has a role to make sure that we bring a recommendation. I don't know that it's just we 7 people or 8 people or 10 people on public health, but that we help to facilitate that coalition, at least within our part. We may not be the major drivers of that, but I would say as part of our strategic plan and Ally's new role and work that we're doing here, and what you've brought to us, we're on the right path.
Thank you. Anybody else?
And there is DASAC, which I know you've gone to at least one meeting recently. So there is that coalition as well already in place that maybe you'd want to start coming more, and there probably could be a subcommittee. I don't think there is currently a subcommittee, is there, Stacy, on opioid settlement funds. So that would be another avenue where then there would be that big DASAC group also putting the weight behind the movement.
Good point. DASAC is very focused on abstinence-only care. I think this is advocating a shift towards multiple pathways to recovery and harm reduction-based models. However, big shout out to DASAC, amazing work that they're doing. And that's a perfect example of the power, what happens when people get in a group, in a room.
All right, thank you all for coming, and we do need to keep working together, so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have unfinished business. The Board of Health Enforcement Ordinance and Procedures Status Update. Nothing has happened on that, so that's the status. Job description for Assistant Director status update. Any update there? Committee meetings? I don't think the committee met this past month.
We've kind of decided to table it until the strategic plan to help let that drive what the new role should be.
And we're also checking in with our executive director often to make sure that she's on board with that. Right?
Yes.
Because I know that you're just going in all different directions, so you could use an assistant, I'm sure. So, but as long as we're making progress toward that, and we have that meeting on the 26th that is really going to get us going. So, all right, good. And then the Board of Health Governing Body Bylaws Discussion and Distribution. That's just, we made some typographical corrections basically and a few little minor changes, and they're just ready to publish if we want to publish them. So I wanted to ask the board, do you want them on our website?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Yep. I think we have a consensus, Ally, that you can go ahead and post them on our website. And then we're distributing them to all the members tonight too, or their email, they'll be emailed to you. Okay, is there any other unfinished business, board members? Hearing none, let's move on to new business. We have none listed. Is there any new business? Hearing none, then we will have board communication and reports. And I'll just go around the room. Dr. Schultz, do you have anything you'd like to add to any of our discussions tonight, or something new, or?
Just something good, as you have all heard that on 5/11, the public health emergency expired. So we are past that, and it looks like we truly are. So let's move on to the more important things and the more actual things. And I think opioid is a big one that had been a problem before. And I think it still is a big one that has just been sort of covered by the urgency of COVID. So I think that's a great idea to put some emphasis on this.
Thank you, Doctor. All right, Amy Crow-Sunley, would you like to report anything?
Well, as part of helping the health department with having one less person there, I suggested to Ally that I would go to most committee meetings that we were both going to, because it doesn't make sense that we're both hearing the same thing. So I went to the Maternal Health Council meeting, and I went to Food Policy Council, and what was the one that we had today? The Health Advisory.
Oh, the Community Health Collaboration.
So I went to those three, and then what I do is I let Ally know what I've put her on the hook to do, which is mostly put things in the next newsletter.
Ally's new best friend.
The other thing that I did, I don't know if you've noticed, but I took over Tina's still doing it too. I kind of took over the Facebook page. And so I've been adding since it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I've been putting in a mental health tidbit most days. I forget on the weekends sometimes, but
Great.
So I tried to do that again to ease their burden of having to think about that as another thing they have to do
Temporarily.
temporarily.
Very good,
Yes,
thank
yeah,
you.
so anybody here who wants to do June, volunteer now. One other thing that I might bring up that I did bring up in, I think the wellness meeting, and it didn't make the agenda this week, or this month, is to add 988 to the police and sheriff cars in town. Iowa City has done that as a way to inform the public that there is a suicide awareness line 988 as opposed to 911. So they have 911 on one side and 988 on the other side. So I would like to have that be, I guess, a goal to have the board push for our law enforcement officers to add that to their vehicles.
So we should put that on as an action item next month. I
Yes,
think.
and the other thing, I guess, for Food Policy Council that I conveyed to Ally was that we talked about the abundance of food like come July, August, September. And I asked a question about canning classes through the extension office, and they can't offer them because they don't have a certified canning instructor. So that might be another action item for us to sign a letter to the Iowa State Extension asking that they be allowed to hire a canning instructor.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. Thank you, Amy. Busy, busy, busy. Let's see, Mike?
Yeah, would like to just share that as Hillcrest is a member of a provider group called the Iowa Behavioral Health Association. And through that, I was nominated to be a part of the Mental Health Disability Services Commission, which is under Iowa state legislation and a governor appointment for an 18-person commission. I start that tomorrow down in Des Moines. Today, we had a joint meeting with another group called the Iowa Mental Health Planning and Advisory Council, which is a federal legislation that drives a 33-member group, and that is like 51% of the folks that are involved in that are either folks that have family members with mental health issues, or they have lived experience with mental health issues. So just an announcement to say that a person on the Board of Health who has some background in mental health is stepping into a further deep end. It's going to be a big learning curve, but look forward to just learning more about how these different functions work in Iowa. So stay tuned.
And Adam, any environmental issues you'd like to?
I've been working
tell us
with the
about?
city of Dubuque to get some air quality monitoring, both mobile and fixed stuff done, and they're super close to agreeing to buying those for us, and talking with Crescent to have like a fixed unit down there, monitor air quality at all times for a variety of different things, and then have mobile units that could be taken anywhere throughout the city or county just to get data on what's going on related to air quality stuff.
Is there a problem or?
I'll report back. No, so there hasn't been lots done related to that. I think that's one of the big issues that EPA doesn't have I think Cassville is the closest permanent fixed site, so there's just not there's enough known as it should be.
How would that be conveyed to the citizens then?
Yeah, that's what we're working on. Our next meeting with the city is deciding who owns the data and how we're going to disseminate it. Yeah, because that's the final hurdle before they sign the check. So that's a great question. Yes. And then I also like to thank Ally. She did a wonderful job speaking at UD's nursing pinning ceremony. So that was very well done. You represented your position and the profession. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Great, thank you, Adam. Anything, Pat?
I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Pat. All right, so let's see. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 21st, 2023 at 4:30. At this time, anyone may address the board on matters which are of concern to that person and which are not agenda items. Please raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or if you're in the room, state your name and home address. Please be aware that the board is limited in their ability to respond to such inquiries, and Iowa code prohibits the board from deliberating or acting on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to speak? Yes. Go ahead and tell us your name and your.
Carla Castle on Rush Street.
speak up a little?
Carla Castle, live on Rush Street.
In Dubuque,
Yes.
okay.
I don't know if this is considered an agenda item. It's not really on here. It was just a comment that you had made in the beginning. I was just wondering, as the Board of Health, why a doctor that might be coming here to speak, I think you had mentioned, as a misinformation person. That's just.
That's the information I was given. The information, this doctor talks about the COVID-19 pandemic being a hoax. And that it didn't, or that it was a bioengineered and done on purpose and all of that. So that's just the information I was given. I have never heard of the doctor before, so I'd have to do more research to have a definitive answer for you. So.
Right.
All right.
Could you just, I'm sorry, clarify the question? I had a hard time hearing it.
I just was wondering why she would be labeled as a person giving this information, which is a well-known physician.
Okay.
And you all are in the medical, community, and, would hope out of the interest of the community that you guys would be open to listening to other medical professionals. So I was just wondering why she was, put.
I understand.
All right, thank you. And just before I ask, I don't think there are any other comments. No. Before we adjourn, I'd like to introduce a very welcome guest tonight that is here with us. Becky Nowacek is here, and she's is a regional
consultant with Iowa Health and Human Services.
Yes,
correct?
and she's very helpful to us and to the health department. I just appreciate that you came tonight, so thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
And we don't need a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. We are adjourned, thank you.
We almost been adjourned there.
Sorry it went a little bit too long here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
I know.
I hope it
No,
works.
and you don't know.
Oh, perfect, okay, yeah.
Oh, you're,